Thank you very much. Hi everyone. I'm Dan. So this is just going to be a talk around PSADT, V4 and 4.1, and we'll go into a little bit of background about it as well. Hang on. So just some introductions. That second part, that's not going to happen because I was mostly about patching PC, so I've taken that out. And we'll just start with some background around the toolkit. I'll give you a little demo of it for those who haven't seen it before. We'll go into what's new in 4 and 4.1. 6, yeah, that was actually just a bullet that I didn't mean to have in there. So I should remember to do my agendas next time. A little bit of background about me. So I currently work for Patchman PC as the strategic innovation lead for PSADT. I'm one of the original co-founders and developers of PSADT back in 2008. About 2011. So it's going back quite a few years, 14 years, I think it's around. And it was around a little bit longer than that because we had it as an internal. It was a hobby project that we built while working for PwC in Ireland. So they became the first unwitting guinea pigs. And then after a couple of months, we opened it out for use by everyone. So my past life is I was a director TAM at Tanium. I've also worked for Beyond Trust and Avecto. I was working on the EPM tooling there as their integration product manager. And I did consultancy for a number of big companies around the world. And my initial tenure was for about 15 years at PwC in Ireland and then in Canada. So I live in Canada now, having left Ireland in 2012, I think it was. This started before I actually even left Ireland, and it's kind of blew up quite substantially. First started as a project on SourceForge, and then we migrated over to GitHub. And while we weren't paying attention for 5 minutes, everyone started using it. And I mean, the number of companies that use it is like the list of names we've seen is just mind-boggling, and not just companies, but hospitals, universities, government agencies, militaries. It's kind of nuts. But anyway, so let me give you a little bit of info about what PSADT is. For those of you who don't know, it is a PowerShell-based open source framework for Windows software deployment. What that means is it works by enhancing an existing vendor install using a prescriptive workflow for install, uninstall, and repair tasks. It provides an easy-to-use library of common deployment functions and a consistent, customizable, and brandable user interface. And all of this is to produce highly consistent, highly successful and consistent deployments. It integrates seamlessly with deployment tools like Intune and SCCM, as well as other ones like Tanium Deploy, BigFix, PDQ, Manage Engine, Ninja. The list kind of goes on. How does it do this? It provides some very, very high quality logging for all of the functions, installs being executed, MSI operations, absolutely everything gets logged. And that means that this can be used for any troubleshooting purposes later on. It provides a consistent, brandable, and localizable user experience. So we provide a user interface, and that allows us to that allows the customer to defer installs if you want to configure it that way. You can set a maximum deferral count, or you can set up deadlines, or you can actually do both at the same time. So you can, let's say, allow someone to defer an application from being updated, let's say the Office suite, and you could do that 3 times, but you could have a drop dead date of 3 weeks in the future. So that means if someone is on vacation and they're out for the next 3 weeks, when they come back, it will immediately be required. And for anyone else, they will have the ability to defer the install for up to 3 times up to that date. So that allows for a lot of flexibility for your staff if you're deploying applications or updates. You can also make sure that applications have been closed down before starting an update. We can also prevent those applications from being opened during the install, and that's very, very useful for things like an Office install, where it could take 30 minutes or longer, depending on how much bandwidth you have available to download, or if you're doing a download and install at the same time, or if it's just a very, very large install. And we can also do things like prompting to restart at the end of an install with an automatic restart countdown. So you could just prompt and say, click restart to restart your computer, or you could basically say your machine will restart in 10 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever time you set it to. We can do something else, which is have a restart countdown plus after a certain period of time, the dialog isn't actually movable. You can't move it off the screen. You can't minimize it. You can't hide it. It just stays there permanently for the remainder of the countdown. We can also display dialogs to collect user input using like 3 buttons or up to 3 buttons, or new in 4.1 is a response via text input, and that one is kind of special. So I'll explain that one a little bit further down. And we're also able to do things like uninstall applications based on the application name, publisher, or version. So we could uninstall, say, Google Chrome version 2025, or we could say any version of Google Chrome or any product by Google. So that will sequentially go through and find every match and remove them all. So other features that we have, we won't actually run the deployment script if you have a PowerPoint presentation running. So right now it wouldn't come up for me, but if I was to exit out of the presentation mode as opposed to just PowerPoint, then it will potentially run and install if something needed to run. We're looking to potentially expand that to cover scenarios like if you're on a voice call in Teams or say Zoom or one of the other conferencing tools. It all depends on whether we have an API access to that. But there's some common Windows APIs to check to see if you're let's say using telecommunications for a voice call or something like that. So we should be able to figure that one out. We're also able to do things like manage user files and registry, and that's from the system account. So when you run an install, it typically runs in the system context. And if you were to try and do something in the user context, it's that little bit trickier to do. If you were to say, who am I as a system, it just gives you back system. It's not the user who's logged into the machine right at that moment in time. So that also means that running processes as a current user can be challenging, and that's something that we provide some easy access to do. And as well as that, we can manage things like active setup and auto run for the current user. Some just nice to have are basic things, but still very useful. Pinning applications to the start menu or taskbar, creating shortcuts, managing extensions from Edge. One that I really love is caching installers locally before execution. So if you use SCCM, this is a basic thing you expect. Your installs get cached into the CCM cache. However, if you use Intune, you no longer have that. You have the IME cache, which is, I think it rolls over or gets cleared out every month, or it might be less. But if you have a large install or any sort of install that can potentially change over time, like let's say the Office install, if you need to install a component of Office later on, or it gets corrupt and you need to do a repair, it was always very useful to have the CCM cache keeping a copy of the full MSI source files. And in certain cases, if you didn't have that, your application would just essentially break if you deleted a desktop shortcut and it tried to do a repair and it didn't have the source files, it could potentially just stop working. So Intune took that away, and we provide a capability of putting back the cache install. So we'll cache all the files locally to a new cache location, and we then run or execute everything from that location. And the same goes for uninstalls and repairs.
Question.
Yeah.
Do we have an estimate or feeling that how big of problem that is that the cache, because I've been using actually, I have one application that I need to copy it locally. This is good, it does it automatically. But do we have estimates or feeling that how big of problem that is with Intune?
No, and it's very hard for us to gauge that. It would be, I mean, if anyone, Microsoft is going to be the one who will be receiving complaints or feature requests for that. We know that it was something that we ourselves found lacking, and it's something that has been raised with us a couple of times to see if we could come up with a solution.
And so just to be sure, that it is there if needed. So that's good.
Yeah, and that's essentially what we wanted to do. It's I don't know how many times I've seen things where the source files they're supposed to be in this IME cache and they get cleared out, and there are always at times when you need them, and it's when you're disconnected, and that's when Office breaks, or when you really need to install like Project or some component of the Office suite. So it was a no-brainer for us to include, and I'm really surprised that Microsoft changed this. Like, I didn't think disk space was really that much of a premium, but I guess it depends on the organization. And when I worked for PwC, we always bought like pretty large hard drives. Everyone had laptops, but hard drives were not like an expensive thing as such. That was never deemed to be like disk space was never at a premium. And so, yeah, I don't think we really ever had disk space issues, even for migrations from like say one OS to another. But I know other organizations have had those sort of challenges, and it would be because maybe they've tried to keep costs down in their initial kind of PC refurb cycle. And so, initially they buy a machine and it's going to be out in the field for, say, I don't know, like 3, 4, 5 years. Over that time, Windows has just gotten bigger, or apps have gotten bigger, or whatever. Disk space has just started to become a little bit more used up. And so you might find coming towards the end of their life cycle, disk space becomes an issue. But it never became an issue for us, and so throwing everything into the cache was always a done thing. But obviously, when Microsoft made this change to the IME or to how caching was done, there was something there. There was some reason for why they felt a need to do it, and I imagine that's because not every organization is able to or would be able to just get the largest hard drives available or whatnot. So,
yeah, thanks.
Nice. So, yeah, the other thing is we fully support every version of Windows that Microsoft currently supports. Now, it's funny because this is a bit of a departure for how we used to do things. We basically supported every OS we possibly could, and much to our own detriment, I think we supported XP for up until like 2021 or something. Like, we still had support for Windows XP and for a long time, and that was because certain companies would contact us and be like, "Hey, I work for some bank in the UK," and they would have a handful of computers that they could not get off Windows XP because of some software that they had to use, and even though they'd been out of support from Microsoft for years and years and years, they still really, they had to stay on that version, and they wanted us to support it. And I guess we were kind of a little bit young and naive at the time, and we were like, yeah, we can do that. So we tried our best to keep things up or keep the lights on for every OS we could. But at a certain point in time, we realized that it was limiting our ability to do interesting new things with the toolkit. So a few years back, we decided, right, the minimum version we're going to support, I think it was .NET Framework 3, or sorry, PowerShell 3. And even then, like by then, PowerShell 5 was out. And so when we started looking at everything that needed to be done for PSADT 4, the first thing that we said was we have to cut support for everything old and get on to the newest versions of newest version of PowerShell, newest versions of .NET. And even then, we actually realized we couldn't do that. So when we released PSADT 4 initially, would have been last December. PowerShell, sorry, .NET, I'm going to say 8, probably 9 was already out, and .NET 10 is about to be released. And we're still supporting .NET 4.7.2 because if you were to pick up any copy of Windows 10 or at the latest supported level, they come with .NET 4.7.2. And if something comes with it, or if a supported version comes with a version of .NET, we have to support it because we have. I know you might think, well, you could just upgrade it as part of, say, Autopilot or something like that. The problem is Autopilot. You can't guarantee the Autopilot will install .NET and upgrade to .NET first before running anything that might be, let's say, a PSADT deployment. So we can't take that risk. We have to support anything out of the box. So for now, we're stuck at 4.7.2. Once Microsoft deprecates support for, I think .NET 4.7.2 stays with every version of Windows 10 and possibly even some of Windows 11. I'll have to check that out. But over time, we will kind of follow what the OS release cycle is. And it's not going to benefit us all the time, but we know that when we get to, say, .NET 9 as being the last supported version, then we'll be able to do a lot of native WPF user interface stuff, which we can't do right now. We're using separate libraries to do that. So there's benefits in us deprecating things. And also because we don't want to get into a situation where we're trying to provide support for a version of the OS that Microsoft doesn't actually support. We've tried that before, and that was a lot of tough work. We'd spend countless hours of our own personal time, weekends, trying to troubleshoot issues that there was never going to be any support from Microsoft on, and we chased our tails on certain issues for weeks trying to troubleshoot something, and then to find out from Microsoft that there was no API or something that would completely break a feature. So yeah, we're not going to try and we're going to try and minimize the amount of time we spend on those sort of things. Anyway, so what are the benefits of using PSADT? Well, it's a robust deployment framework. It's very widely adopted, and I can't stress enough how widely adopted this is. I have a list of companies that I know of that use PSADT, and it's old at this point, but it is still a list of like massive names of companies and countries, and it is so pervasive throughout the industry that the likes of HP they have it as almost like a minimum requirement for people joining their consulting arm. There's other companies that have it as a requirement for any sort of application packaging job or anything in the kind of the sysadmin space. So it's actually one of the reasons why we're currently going through we're going to be releasing training in the next couple of weeks, and it's like a curriculum plus certification, because if people are being asked, to be able to, as a requirement, job requirement, to have knowledge around PSADT, we felt it was a good idea to be able to provide people with a certificate so that they could actually prove that. So it reduces the learning curve for PowerShell scripting as well. I know a lot of people here probably have a good bit of knowledge around PowerShell scripting. When we started this, the PowerShell was quite new. It actually came from does anyone happen to remember YScript? I don't know if you're actually using the chat function here, but I'm just curious. So YScript was something that came from, I think it was Altiris or Semantic, and it was basically a UI for creating like a scripted executable, and it had like dialogues, it had install commands, and it just provided a very easy way of creating your own executable installer. Kind of like MSI, I guess, a little bit, except much easier to use. MSI is actually horrible to use. If anyone has actually done anything with Orca or tried to build their own MSI, it's not a lot of fun. YScript was actually fun, and it was something I used in PwC in Ireland, and at some point in time, their company got sold, and whoever bought it, they decided they were going to deprecate YScript, and we were kind of all put on the back foot, and we kind of decided, right, well, we need to pivot to something else, and there was nothing else out there apart from MSI, and we hated MSI. A Windows installer, it just wasn't. It's very kind of complicated, and it's very unnecessarily complicated, I think, even to this day. So I started to look into how do I pivot to something like PowerShell, and how do I start learning around PowerShell about PowerShell. I think VBScript hadn't been deprecated, but PowerShell was on the rise, and I knew that I needed to start learning it. So this was, I guess, a way of teaching myself PowerShell in a way, and it was also simplifying it for myself and for other people as well. So coming from MyScript, I'd have a very simple edit registry function, and there was no equivalent in PowerShell. There was get item, get child item, set, and new, and all those things, but it really wasn't as intuitive, and I needed something that I could very easily just, if I wanted to edit a registry key, I could just put in a single line and it would just go and do that. And if there was a problem with it, it would log it. And so all of these functions were kind of built at the time to basically give me as an experience as possible from YScript over to PowerShell. And I think initially the earlier versions did a good job of that, but they were very poor at sticking with PowerShell standards. So we quite often deviated from the standard PowerShell verb noun convention, and we definitely used a couple of wrong verbs. Execute MSI is probably a good example of that. But in V4, we've actually come back around and we've fixed all that. Everything is now standardized PowerShell naming conventions, and where it made sense, we've reduced some of these, like the ways we've simplified things at the cost of deviating from PowerShell. So those have all been corrected. We've reduced the learning curve. It's probably a little bit trickier to learn V4 solely because we wanted to stay within the bounds of PowerShell as best possible. So instead of learning reducing the learning curve that we did in V3 and potentially giving you bad habits for learning PowerShell, we're now conforming to PowerShell. So you learn correct PowerShell, but it might just make it a little bit more daunting, or it might seem a little bit trickier initially. But I think it still reduces the learning curve. So it definitely reduces the packaging effort involved with producing a script or deployment script for, say, any deployment, but it's something that you do on a very frequent basis. Something like Adobe Reader or Java, you can knock together a new script in a couple of minutes. And in fact, we have additional tools like Zero Config MSI, Zero Config MSI mode, which is a way of very quickly getting you a deployment up and running with absolutely no effort. And I'll demonstrate that. It very much simplifies deployment troubleshooting because we log everything, whereas by default, MSI doesn't. And if you're doing anything outside of MSI that's script-wise, you need to have your own logging there as well, and we combine it all into one. And there is an extensive online community. We have GitHub, we have a Discord channel, we have Reddit, and we have Discourse forums as well. And you can use as much or as little of the toolkit as you actually want to. Like you can, a lot of people they won't use the actual deployment script. They just want to get to the functions and use those, but they don't want to actually go through our kind of opinionated deployment workflow. And that's absolutely fine. Like I said, use as little or as much as you want. All right, so let's take a look and see what this thing is all about. Now, so I guess I have no indication because just the nature of a webinar. I have no indication of how many people use PSADT or have used it before, or whether I should get into showing you the basics or any feedback on that.
Both.
Yeah, show the basics. I never seen it.
Yeah, we have both kind of admins. So ones who have been using for many years, and many admins who haven't been using it at all.
Okay, sure. So first off, this is the PSADT website. First thing to do is just get a copy of it. The easiest way is to just jump to our docs. You can see here from the download page, you can install it directly from the PowerShell gallery, or you can download it as a zip file. We have a module, and we have a bunch of templates. The templates will scaffold and install for you. The module, you can do the same thing as well. So if I was to just, I'll pull this down and we'll take a look. So I may actually already have this installed. It didn't, okay. So I install the module, and this will pull down the latest version each time. And I'll just do import module, PSAppDeployToolkit. So this imports all the functions, and what we're most interested right now in is just one function, which is new ADT template. So, and I should clarify, my machine is a little bit slow at the moment. It needs to be replaced, I think. But so we prefix everything with ADT, and I can just show you here, just get command, module, PSAppDeployToolkit, PSAppDeployToolkit. So these are all the functions that get provided. There's quite a few, but most of these are in their assistants or their helpers for your deployment. So the likes of, say, get registry key or get running processes, get user profile, new folder, new shortcuts, removing files and shortcuts, registering DLLs, setting environment variables, and then you've got some dialog functions here. So blink tips, showing a dialog, showing a restart prompt, starting an MSI, starting a regular process, a bunch of tests. There's quite a bit there, but the one we're interested in right now is new ADT template. And we'll just say Finland, and I'll just say show. So this goes off and it scaffolds a new deployment for me. And so if you've used V3 before, you will recognize some of these files and folders, or it'll look somewhat similar. If V3, we had files, we had support files, and we had a PSAppDeployToolkit folder. And then we had two other files called deploy application. Again, with keeping with good naming conventions, we've changed these to invoke AppDeployToolkit. And so we used to have a deploy application.exe and the PowerShell script, which is your deployment script. The exe is really just a helper to run a PowerShell script visible, but not display an actual prompt, terminal window. So I can jump in here and I can look at the actual script, edit in, actually, just double click. Oh, I was hoping this would open in code for me. So let's go and just fix this. /Finland and code. Oh, it's in a subfolder, that's right. Okay, so this is what my script looks like. So I get a lot of comments up the top where we're going to probably look at removing this at some point. But we've always had this huge, big, providing documentation and help has been one of the big things and big focuses for us from the outset. So, you go into the script, you get all of the details around what it's for and all of the parameters that we provide and a bunch of examples. It does tend to take up a lot of space at the start, but I always find that it's good to provide it. So if we look at the rest of the script, do I need to zoom on this or can you guys see okay? Is that better?
Yeah, we can see.
Yeah,
At least I can see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the most important parts in here that will be relevant to you, you can skip the preamble, all of the parameters. If you go down to the variable section, this is where we'll populate our application vendor, name, version, architecture if we want. We can also specify a list of applications to close, so the process to close when we're going to do the deployment. So let's say for Office, we'd have Excel, Word, PowerPoint, or PowerPNT. And you can specify them. You specify it as an array, but you can either specify just the executable name, or you can fully craft this as a process name and a description if you want to fill that out and change what the default would be. So instead of it coming up in a list to say winword.exe, it'll come up as Microsoft Word, and it's just it's good. It's looks better to the end user, and it's more correct PowerShell syntax as well. So you can specify these, and these are all part of what's known as the ADT session. This is a new part of PSADT 4, and it's new with the concept of having a module in the first place. So PSADT 3 was a .sourced script, and V4 uses an actual module now, and we load the module as part of our deployment script. As part of this as well, we create the ADT session, and this carries all of the information around the deployment itself, as well as things like environment variables and configuration settings. The cool thing about this is each ADT session is you can actually have multiple ADT sessions in a script or in across. So where this is useful is if you wanted to condense a deployment script to contain a number of dependencies as well. You can duplicate out the ADT session, call them different things, and then have them running or have them instantiated and passed to the module. But you can manage them differently. You can start them differently. You can actually start them in parallel if you want. The only limitation is that obviously Windows Installer doesn't run more than one at a time, so you'd need to check and make sure that it's not doing something. But you could potentially, if you were clever enough and you weren't, let's say, using Windows Installer, you could potentially have a number of deployments running at the same time, copying files and I think maybe large files, or doing a variety of different tasks on different threads. And so you could have 6 deployments going at once. That would be a very complicated use case, but it's more the fact that you can do it. We're trying to make this really robust and future-proof. So for now, it's just a single workflow where you probably only have one session per script or per deployment script, but interesting to note for the future. So once you've got your sessions defined or your session variables defined, we have 3 functions. So there's install, uninstall, and repair. And if I just look at the install for the moment, here the first thing we do in this one is we display a welcome message. We allow.
Mikä?
Ryhmällä ruoka.
En ole muuten antanut.
Was that a question or no?
No,
Okay.
Pavel has mic open.
Okay, no worries.
I think it was a question. What's for food?
Yes.
So the first thing we do in our kind of prescriptive workflow is we'll display a message. If we had specified any process to close, we will also bring these in here as well. And then in this specific example, we have up to 3 deferrals. We check if there's enough disk space free, and then we'll persist the prompt on the screen so it can't be dismissed. So that gets displayed. Then we just display a progress message. We've here perform your installation tasks, whatever you want to do. That's for your pre-install. Then for the actual install, this is all zero config stuff. So I mentioned that before, and I'll get into that in a second. But again, you've got an empty template here, so you can put in whatever install task you have. And if you have any post-install tasks, in this example, we just display, a simple prompt at the end to say you can customize the texture if you want. So I can come in and I can start customizing this. I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm not going to specify I'm not going to specify anything at all. Instead, I'm going to go and find something like WinSCP. Yeah, I have a copy of it. So that's the MSI for WinSCP. And I had this WP Finland folder. In the files folder, I'm going to just throw this MSI in there. Nothing else. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to jump back to my install here. I'm going to run the PowerShell script. I can run the executable as well, but for my purposes here, I want to run the PowerShell script because I want to see all the output from this too. So let's run this and see what happens. So this goes into zero config mode. And what it's actually done is, if you to jump back to the logs here, in fact, let's not do it here. Let's go into C Windows, logs, suffer. And you'll see we have a WinSCP log here. I'm going to open this up. And this is CMTrace, so it's in the CMTrace format. And you can see here, it does some initial logging. It figured out that WinSCP was the script essentially hadn't been configured in any particular way, but it did find that hang on a second, let me read this again. It found that WinSCP was present, and so it used that MSI as the main installation action. And so it reads all the data from the MSI itself. It already found that it was installed, so it didn't do anything. I had forgotten about that. So let me just change something here. I'm going to go back and rerun this. I'll uninstall WinSCP first. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to open WinSCP and show you just the different behavioral modes that will actually appear. So I'll run the script again with WinSCP open. And what will happen now instead should be there we go. So I get prompted. This is what our interface looks like. I get prompted to actually close this down instead. And so now it will actually close the install and it'll rerun, or it'll actually run the upgrade or the installation. I think it puts it in. Let's just try it and see what happens. So it shuts it down and it sees that it's already installed, which is that's what I was actually expecting, and it basically continued on. So this is an interesting little minefield at the moment that we're going through, where we're trying to figure out how best to get deployments to complete as best as possible without showing a user any message if needs be, or if we can avoid it. So the scenario we're thinking about is, let's say we want to get patches installed, and it's, let's say, third-party patches, so the likes of Adobe Reader or WinSCP if there's a new version out because of a security update. What we want to do is try and get deployments to a state of being, or get everything upgraded as quickly as possible without impacting the user. And so we're making a decision to not display any user interface if there's no need to. So if the application isn't open, and if we can then just basically do the upgrade silently in the background, then that's kind of the path we'll take. If a user or if their application is open, we'll pop a dialog to say, right, we need to actually close this down. That's the scenario where it was already installed. I don't think we thought about that one just yet. So in that scenario, I would expect we shouldn't pop a dialog at all because it's already installed. So we should probably move our check for the installation. But that's just a note for future, just in case you were wondering about the reason for why it popped up. But I'm going to just do an uninstall
Question,
as well.
Quick. You had a default template. How did it know that the application is running?
Because it opens the MSI, it looks through all the file lists, and it figures out what executables are in there, and it makes that part of the close apps list.
Okay, nice. Good.
Yeah, that's one of the nice new features. Actually, I think that's been around since at least 4. I think. One other thing that's really useful about this. Sorry, I'm just going to uninstall this first. One other thing that is useful is we support WIM files. That's new in 4.1. So what I mean by that is, I'm sure you guys know what WIMs are. If you've done anything with OS deployments, Windows comes in a WIM, and it's a Windows image format. The benefits to the WIM format are, if you're using that to compress a bunch of files, you could deduplicate various different installs. So say Autodesk, there's like 50 different types of Autodesk install, but you can build a single WIM image that contains all of them, and it compresses really well. As well as that, if you have it compressed in as part of a WIM, you mount the WIM, you don't extract it. So for something large like Autodesk, if you are trying to do an install and you have it as a zip file, you have to basically extract it locally first, and then you do your install, which means you need double the disk space to do it. With WIM, you just mount the WIM to a drive, and then you run your install, and then you can dismount it afterwards. So you only need whatever disk space is needed for that one install. So WIM is a really useful format, and it's something that we really like. So we've built in a whole bunch of functionality around supporting WIM files, but we also support zero config MSI embedded in a WIM file. So you can compress and install into a WIM, drop the WIM into the files folder, and when you run the same process with no other configuration whatsoever, it will find the WIM file, it will mount it, it will determine that there's an MSI in there. If there's an MST, a transform, it will also apply the transform. And it will then go in and look and see what applications or what executables are part of the installation to use for the closed programs. So you can have a very fluid process of just mounting a WIM, looking for the MSI, verifying that the application is closed down, performing the installation, and then unmounting the WIM at the end of it. And it's all done seamlessly. So it's really quite nice. But I don't know how many people use that feature. It's kind of new, but the most important part is that you know about it, and so you can play around with it. So I'm going to run this again. I've done the uninstall, and you'll see again, this is, it'll run it as silently as possible. It's already determined that it's not installed, and it starts the install. It does a number of additional things around MSI exec. So we check for an exclusive lock that MSI exec uses to basically prevent more than one install running at the same time. It'll wait until another MSI is finished installing before it'll run. So that's useful for if you've got, say, SCCM potentially running your install, but you're running the install outside of the SCCM process, say through a scheduled task, but SCCM starts to deploy out patches at the same time. So we'll wait until we can actually start the install before interrupting or trying to run and fail if the system is busy doing something else. So jumping back to our log, you'll see here if I scroll down.
Sorry for pause. Your screen share is crashed. It doesn't update for anyone.
Oh, it didn't?
Yeah, so can you reshare or something? So
yeah, sure. That's weird. Is that better?
Yeah, now it works. Thanks.
Okay, cool. So I think the last iteration here was, yeah, that's about right. So this, you'll see in our logs, we see that it will do your disk-based checks to see if WinSCP or Patch Interpretty Generator are running, and then it actually starts the DMSI install and populates all the details here, so you can see everything right down to the end when it finished with an exit code of 0. And if we jump back into that same folder we were in, the software folder, there is an install log there as well. This is the MSI log. So you can see every aspect of this gets logged. And yeah, so that's basically the core part of PSADT in terms of the basic script format for V4 and how to use the zero config MSI functionality.
So may I quickly recap? So if I understood correctly, you did 3 things. You first launch, you have that application already installed.
Yeah.
The second launch, you have that application running and you had a wizard pop up, and now you uninstall it, and that was the full install, the last phase, right?
Yeah. So the last one is, like I said, it runs in what we call deploy mode auto by default. That means it will try not to display a user interface if it can get away with not doing so. You can also change the deploy mode so that it'll always display a user interface. So for example, if there's no program to close down, then it will still display, but it will just say, do you want to start the install or not? And it depends. It's really up to each organization. You might want to display a message no matter what to the end user, or you may decide, look, it's more important to get the patch out or get the update out, and so just do it silently where possible. Only ask the user to shut down things if they need to, and only display in a user interface at that time. Other things that we'll do would be, like if you're doing deployment through, say, a task sequence for OS deployments, we will, or another scenario will be if there's no one logged into the computer, so they've gone home from work for the day, you start your deployments that night, and there's usually no one there. In both that and an OSD scenario, we will silently just go through the install. By default, we'll try and perform a silent install without just canceling, I suppose. And you can configure it so that if it is running in OSD mode, or if it's trying to run and there's no one logged in, and the install, let's say it needs to do something for the user, like possibly display a dialog or run something in the current user's desktop, then we can either fail it and wait until they can do it successfully. So we kind of account for a lot of different scenarios. Yep.
So I never used the tool. It's totally new for me. But if I understand, so in most of the cases, it is enough that you just drop the installation file in the folders and run the PowerShell from the root, and that's it. Or
that you could do that. You can do that if you want. To be honest, I think a lot of people would be a lot more in depth, and they'd create much more. They'd have a lot more creative or complex scripts. Is there someone saying something? I hear someone talking. Or is that in the background?
Just the background.
Just background, okay.
Yeah.
So did that answer your question?
Yeah, so in the most cases, you still go to this main script and you change things.
Yeah, I think so. To be perfectly honest, this is a mechanism. I think I put it in a long time ago, and it was mostly for demoing the functionality of the toolkit. So all of the components and all of the functions that you might write yourself into a cohesive script. It was a way of automating it and being at taking that like webinars like this, where I wanted to quickly show all of these features in one go. And so we built in this zero config MSI mode. And actually, there's still a lot of people that use it, we've discovered. They like being able to just drop in one file and just go with it. But for the most part, we would expect most people are going to put in the details into the script directly.
I think the reality is that when you start using it, you build up your own like scripts or to some specific apps, and then when the new version comes in, you check the old version and you copy your own customizations, whatever you want to show on the pop-up and everything. That's what I've been doing earlier. I have so many things. I will let you do your job, because then we will have a free talk, and I'm so excited. I saw some really cool stuff here. Okay,
so
continue.
I realize I'm actually probably way behind on time, so I'm going to speed up a little bit here because I still have tons.
10 minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah. Oh no, that's what I'm saying. I'm going to speed up because I probably have about another hour's worth of content. So let's try and be fast with the rest of this. Let's talk about V4 or 4.1.3 is actually what we ended up releasing. I'll skip the whys on that one, but so V4. The main things that I wanted to touch here on was, we released this back in November. V3, the last major update to V3 for like 3.9 was maybe a year before that. And before that, I mean, we've been very, very lightly touching PSADT for maybe 6 years. We were on V3.3.8, I think, and we'd been promising V4 to come for a long, long time. And we kept kind of going through iterations of it, and I was never happy with any of the code. And it was like we threw out so many various copies. This, what we actually did release for V4, I'm really, really happy with. It did have some initial issues. V4.1 is exactly where we want it to be. So we're really, really, really pleased with where it's at right now. So just in terms of, I'm not going to spend too much time on these slides, but support for PowerShell V7, ARM64, running in PowerShell strict mode V3, all very, very big parts of this, and there's backwards compatible with V3 as well. The UI redesign is a big thing that we undertook and tried to get right the first time, and we didn't, and we think we've got it right now. The V3 user interface is we can now call the classic UI, and that's on the left. V4, the initial V4 was on the right, and it was a little bare bones, but still kind of where we wanted to go with it a little bit, but we've gone and overhauled that a little bit now. So most important thing, V4.1 is what we've literally just released in the last 2 weeks. Big things on this. Up until now, it wasn't possible to display a user interface when deploying an app as system using Intune, or really any endpoint management tool. SCCM did allow you to do something, but in a nutshell, you needed to use a tool called ServiceUI. And does everyone know what ServiceUI is? Have you come across ServiceUI in the past? I'm sure some of you have. In fact, most people who've used Intune should have. SCCM maybe. But ServiceUI is a tool that came out from Microsoft as part of the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, MDT, and it was absolutely vital to anyone who wanted to do anything like display a UI or interact with the end user or do anything as a user when running a deployment through Intune. Absolutely vital. Also, completely insecure and is a security nightmare. You want to get it out of your environment as soon as possible. If people don't know this is a security risk, then they have no business running it in their environment. So ServiceUI, the way it works is it runs in the system context, and when you start any Intune-based deployment, you will run ServiceUI as your executable. And then you specify a secondary exe, or let's say it's PowerShell, or it's Invoke ADT application, or it's some other tool like just installed on MSI, or let's say Windows installer. The way it works is it tries to discover the user session, which is typically the explore.exe process is typically going to be running in the user session. So it determines the user session by looking for that. And then it duplicates a system token into the user's session. Now, what that basically means is it will display a user interface, but it is running a system. And that is bad, because if you have an end user able to do anything with that on-screen token, then they potentially have full access to the system. Now, I can demonstrate this, but I'm running out of time here. I'll very, very quickly demonstrate this. We may run over, so just in case we do, sorry.
No worries, no worries.
Okay, so I'm sure
we have the extra 15 minutes for discussion, so we can use the time. No worries. Okay,
so I'm sure most of you know what PSADT is, and you know how to pop a system level process using this. So this is basically an administrative command prompt, and I use PSADT to run cmd.exe. When I run who am I'm running a Entity Authority system. That's all good and well. So this is what ServiceUI essentially gets you when you run a deployment through Intune. And I want to just jump into, where am I? Actually, you might have been in the right folder there. Okay. So I wanted to show you what happens when you run the Git install. Now, you know what Git is. It's for a source control tool, and it's something that you might potentially run using ServiceUI because you have, let's say, a bunch of developers, and they all have, like, I mean, you can see here, there's a lot of settings in here, and if I click through, there's even more, and there's more still. There's a lot of different settings that can be configured, and you might have different teams working with different configurations of how Git is set up. Different versions of OpenSSH, whether it's bundled or the external, how they on carriage returns, things like that. OpenSSL versions as well. There's a lot of different configuration items in here, and there is very valid reasons for why your developers could operate them differently. So again, I'm just going to click, go right to the end. So I'll let that run. And there's very valid reasons for why you would just pop the Git install with user interface for your developer crew. And the problem with that is when you come to the end of this install, and this is one of many installs that do something stupid. So some might, actually, I'll show you. So here, I'm going to click Launch Git Bash. Now, look at that. We've got another window. And look at that. I now have system. I didn't do anything, but that's system level access on a process that I was allowed to control. And all I had to do was just type in or CMD. So you can, I hope that demonstrates exactly how insecure ServiceUI is, or what the scenario that it can cause for you. And no one really, there's no documentation out there by Microsoft about it. They don't support it anymore. I'm surprised it was ever released. I really was surprised. Yeah, a lot of people don't know enough about it. They just blindly use these tools because a blog post from 4 years ago said, this is how you do it in Intune. So yeah, it's a little bit dangerous, and it's something people need to be aware of. The other thing is, and there's scenarios like not every application is gonna pop a Git, a bash window, because that's something that's very specific to Git. But what you have seen right at the end of an install many times is something like this, and it'll pop up with like, let's say, readme.exe or readme.txt. Should create a new file. Just say yes to this. So that's you'll see a README file at the end of an install. What you can do from within here is just go File, Open, see Windows System 32, star.exe, and then we go and look for where we go here. All we have to do is find CMD, then right-click, and run as administrator. Boom! I have an administrator command prompt again. So that's just getting it from like Notepad. But it's because essentially ServiceUI has launched the installer in the system context with on the user desktop with with the system level access, and every process down the chain is going to have that as well. So this is massively insecure, and it's something that we wanted to do something about for a long time, and we finally did. And we finally have basically eradicated the need for ServiceUI entirely. You no longer need to use it. We advise you to take it out of your environment and use PSADT instead. And the way that we operate is essentially, we have a client server architecture. And when you start PSADT, any deployment script, the first thing it will do is, actually, it'll operate entirely in system context if it can. There's nothing to do outside of that. Like if it's a silent install, it doesn't do anything funky. It will just operate as normal. However, if you try and do anything, or if the script determines itself, it needs to display something to the end user, it will immediately start a process in the user's context, but it will start it as a user. So it's a standard permission process, and it is essentially a client-server architecture. So on the main thread and running a system, we start up a server and over anonymous pipes, and we start up a process as a user, and we use that pipe to communicate back and forth. And it's secured, and there's pretty much no way for any other process to jump in there. And we send information back and forth between the two. So we're really strict on what information can be sent upwards through the pipe. We send commands down to the clients, like pop a restart dialog or display a welcome dialog, and here's all the text you need to display, and we'll wait for you to respond with a button click. And so you respond with a button click, and it goes back to the server. The server examines everything that's coming back up with a lot of scrutiny, and then it'll say, right, okay, well, it's someone has clicked, continue on that dialogue, and so we'll proceed, and the dialogue will go away. And yeah, it's basically the secure way of doing things in terms of displaying something on the desktop and giving it separation of duty, essentially. So that was one of the biggest things that we put into 4.1. It was an absolutely huge amount of work. The only other applications or the only other tools that I know of that do something similar to this would be the likes of Beyond Trust EPM, because they are able to do a lot of process or manipulation or token manipulation. And this isn't actually token manipulation. This is doing things the right way and very much the secure way. So I don't think we're ever going to be flagged as like by any AV product as being malware or anything like that. But yeah, it's the way to do things going forward, we think, and we think that every software deployment tool is probably going to lean in on this as well, or they'll suddenly start coming up with their own implementations of it. It's a big deal, and we're very proud of it. So the other things that we've added in now are we have full feature parity between the classic and Fluent UIs. So V3 and V4, they now do all the same things. There was a lot of when we released V4 initially, we were missing a bunch of things that we thought were going to be deprecated, and we thought people weren't using. And very quickly, we found out people were using this. So we brought everything back. There's no longer a reason to stick with V3. Everything is there in V4 for you. And we've actually got some new stuff in there too. So we can prompt people for input via text box, and that's something that's new, and it's only made possible by the new architecture, because we never want to pop an input box on a ServiceUI and instantiate a dialog, because that would be prone to something like a SQL injection. Maybe it would be I've considered very, very insecure to try something like that. Now we can be very, very strict on what information is being sent back through the pipe anyway, and we parse that correctly and make sure that there's nothing malicious in there. But yeah, it's a totally secure text box, and we're probably going to start looking at other controls too. So over time, you might find that we expand this out to allowing you to build your own UI. We also support bolding text, italics, and accenting text. I'll show you what that looks like. So if you can see there, so now we have, instead of just specifying or showing what applications can be closed, we now have a start countdown, automatic start countdown. We also have your number of deferrals remaining. The layout's just been improved kind of slightly. I know one of the big complaints that we got was the PSADT logo up here. We've kind of toned that down quite a bit. We are going to keep it there, and we're trying to basically force it to stay there. It's not forced as such. Essentially, we want it to be present because we're trying to establish our own brand, and we allow everyone to change all the text and change the dialogues, change the icons that appear. change the accent colors, but we want to keep this tiny 16 by 16 pixels for ourselves. And if you really want to get rid of it, you can, because you can recompile the project yourself. It's buried in there. I'm not going to tell you where it is, but it is there, and you can recompile it. The only thing you need to be aware of is you won't be using signed binaries from us, because the signed binaries are done by the project, and they include that small little icon. We hope that people will just allow that to be there, and they'll be happy enough with the rest of the branding. So we can enforce the accent color as well. So this is a blue. We can change that entirely. You can change the dialog position on screen. So we initially were kind of going for a notification style display down at the bottom right. You can now center it like the old version of PSADT, or you can have a top center or top left or whatever you want. So, oops, I'm gonna click the wrong thing. Did I unshare my screen by accident?
It's working. Can we do it like 5-ish minutes?
Yeah. I'm zipping through this as quick as I can. Again, here, this is an example of the dialog. So you can see here we have a Spotify, but we've changed the accent color, we changed the icon. We also have deferral deadline on this one. Jumping through, what else we got? Okay, so very quickly, ADMX templates. We now provide the ability to customize all of the configuration settings within PSADT through group policy. So if, for instance, you want to go, or you're using V3, or you want to go to V4 and you want to retain the existing classic UI, you can do that. And at a later point in time, you can enable the Fluent UI all in one go for every package that you have by just changing a group policy setting. Or you can change any of the other settings, like let's say the log location or timeouts or anything like that. So you can do it centrally. That's very, very useful. We now support uninstall and repair as a named action within the UI, something that we were missing. The UI would always only ever talk about installs. It would never talk about repairs or uninstalls. We now actually support all of those. Lots of other bits and pieces in here. I'm going to just skim through this quickly because I want to get to, very quickly, more demos. I want to show you one thing very quickly, which is I built a tiny little script. It's nothing fancy, but it's just a demo script just to highlight a couple of the things in V4. V4.1, sorry. Demo. So within the script, I'll just quickly open it up. Nope, I typed that wrong. God, and I was worried I wouldn't have enough, or that I was going to run really, really early on this. So within the script, I've basically got a few new settings on the welcome dialog, forcing a countdown, throwing in some custom text, during the install. I'm doing some progress information things here. One of the things we added was the ability to change progress message and also the percentage, whereas it used to be an indeterminate progress message. What else we got here? Oh, just some dialogues to be shown at the end. So it's best to just run this and see what happens. Damn. So I need to pop it.
Demo happened.
Hey, no, not. We'll solve this one. Hang on. Well, okay. It was because I had a different copy of the module loaded, and so it's going to run through. There's a nice green UI, so that's the color that I chose. You can see there on the second line, you've got a test of the custom message feature with bold, italic, and accent color. So those you can really jazz up your messages now. The icon is customizable, and so is all of the text. And underneath, you've got WP Ninjas Finland. You have your countdown. You have a number of deferrals remaining, and you have a deferral deadline. So we'll click install. And that's set up block execution now as well. So for things like Spotify, if I was going to open that, it'd pop a block execution dialog. Here's our input box. I can put in whatever I want here if I was asking someone for a server name or something like that. progress message with that's changeable. So this is something that we didn't have before. We do now. And finally, last two things. Right. So this is a prompt, another input type of dialog. We can do maybe, okay, cancel, whatever we want. Those are completely customizable buttons. And I'll just click OK on that. And we have one more button, or one more dialog still, and that's center of the screen. So that's something that and you can move it as well. So we've configured it to be able to be moved, whereas down here it wasn't. Very quick, and it doesn't show you all of the features, but it's some of the features that came in 4.1. Hopefully that was useful to you guys. Hopefully I wasn't talking too fast, or that I didn't go rambling about something that was irrelevant. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. And if there is time for any questions.
Yes, we have time. Thank you very much. And you were just like me that, oh, I want to share this one and that one, because it was really good content. And I'm quite sure that anyone who has been using this one will really want to go to the version 4. And I think there are quite many who haven't been using that one that, hey, what the heck is that one? I want to use that one. So it was really good session and the demos and everything. And
I'm glad they all worked.
I was so excited on some other stuff. We usually have a free talk here after session, so people can open the mics and yeah. So
I can open now.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
It waited really long time for this updated 4.1 version coming. I tested the 4.0 and I run into some little bugs about the deferral and things like that. And I think, okay, I have to wait. So I read the comments and says, okay, you promised you fixed it in 4.1. Then I just wait the 4.1 then.
So yeah, we took nearly 6 months to get 4.1 out, and the reason for that is largely because of the ServiceUI things. We felt that it was so important to get that fixed, to get ServiceUI out of the equation. And so,
can you recap in 10 seconds how the ServiceUI replacement, how your approach works?
It basically it is a client server architecture. So we start two processes, one as system, one as a user, and they.
I think Sandy's, it might be echoing from Sandy's headphones,
I can't hear myself. So the way it works is essentially it starts two processes and it uses the server to manage the client piece. And so everything that's running as every user interaction or user facing piece of it is done in the secure client process that's running with minimal rights. And then anything that is an install task is running as system.
Cool. Let's just keep on. I can show also some other stuff here. So it was really good that it is a PowerShell module which you can download and install, because that's what we do. And there are tons of tools. I just created 2 weeks ago. I created my own script because I needed to check for MSI file properties and check some stuff. Now I see that we have a ready-made function here. So I could have just used this one. It's damn. It's good. And then I need to show, this is not related to this, but it was something that I was mind blown. This is just another random script. You can see here in the code that this is the code. Okay, that's normal. In your code, I was looking why are those popping out? Why is this so damn good looking? I was what did I know? It's the marks. Yeah, and now I know I need to use that one later now on.
It came into a version of VS Code a couple of versions ago, and I was like, that is brilliant. I need that in my life.
That's amazing. I was like, oh, shut up, Petri, you can't shout out, but that's like, it's those small little things, but this was like extra info. But yeah, there are good stuff going on with this one. This was really good session, and this was worth for the waiting to get the 4.1 and see that it's now actually really working, and we should move on to that one.
I think there's still some quirks in there. There's still things that we're missing. Not missing in terms of the functionality that we had with V3. I think we've got everything that we did have, and anything that isn't there has probably been intentionally removed because we think there's a better way of doing things. In terms of where we go from here, we're steadily building a V4.2 kind of plan, but we're really happy with where it's at right now. It's the best it's ever been for sure, and the code is really tight. Even though there'll always be bugs that crop up, but it's really solid. A lot of it actually, my only kind of like, sorry, I guess not concern, but we're doing a lot of the development in C#, and then exposing it through to PowerShell, which is still technically the right thing to do with PowerShell modules, but it makes it, I guess, a little bit less accessible for someone who just wants to browse through PowerShell code and figure something out, because you then have to jump back into a C#, and some people are just terrified by C#, and sometimes they have good reason to be terrified of C#, but it is way better in every single capacity than it used to be, but it can sometimes look a lot more daunting and a lot more. There's a lot more to it, and it's all done from a very solid place of standards and best practices, and we're taking a lot of that into account, and we take security now more than anything ever. Security is our kind of paramount thing. We want this to be 100% secure all the time. Every bit of code we put in, we audit, and we want to make sure that we never put a customer or put a user into a position of having less permissions or a degraded security experience because of something that we've done. So we're trying to keep the code in here really tight, and strict mode is one of the big things, and it basically just makes sure that you're protected as best as possible.
Pavel was wondering that will this remain free forever?
Yes, there's no question about that. It's as of right now, the source code is available on GitHub. It is under the LGPL license. It's totally free. Patching PC aren't going to suddenly go, oh hey, there's going to be, or there's now a paid version. Actually, well, okay, they're perfectly entitled to do I suppose a premium version or something like that, which could be a very good thing, and it's the way open source tends to work. But there is other things like enterprise support, which is something that they are doing. So if you're a Patch PC customer at a certain tier, then they will provide assistance or SLA-based support on using the toolkit. And any of if you need help with something or you're stuck, then you can give the support team a shout and they'll help you get unstuck, I guess. But a lot of that's mostly, I think, to help customers who, if you want to implement the toolkit, but you have your company for some reason decides, yeah, we don't like open source, and we everything has to have an SLA attached to it, and so they dismiss a lot of open source projects or products as a result. This is kind of a way of getting around those SLAs or those requirements, auto requirements. So, but it's still going to remain free for sure.
Oh, that was like 1.5 hour full of information. So this was thanks once again. It was good session. Anyone else want to shout out? Now we have few minutes. Then I think it is evening 8:30 p.m. here in Finland. So.
That's fine. I gotta go because actually my boss is messaging going, hey, we're supposed to have our meeting or one-on-one.
Well, you can say that it was really VIP people from Finland and the other meeting.
Of course, you can wait.
Yeah. Well, can we have the slides and can we share the video?
You can, yeah.
And can we share the slides on our site?
Yeah.
Okay,
Awesome.
let's do that offline, and we can figure out that one.